Recently, the fourth largest gold producer, Goldcorp, invested $6.3 million into Triumph Gold. Triumph Gold is a junior resource company developing the Freegold Mountain Project, located in the Yukon Territory of Canada. To give us some insight as to why Goldcorp would make such a significant investment, we recently had an opportunity to talk to Tony Barresi, PhD, PGO, and Vice President of Exploration for Triumph Gold. Dr. Barresi.
Hello.
Why don't you first start telling us what it's like to work in the Yukon?
The Yukon is an incredible district to work in. We've been working up there since 2006, and the amount of support that we've had working in the Yukon, both from government and First Nations, has been incredible.
So what about the Freegold property itself? For instance, what might have initially caught the attention of Goldcorp?
We have a district scale property. It's 200 square kilometers, about 20 kilometers from end to end. The property is bisected by the Big Creek Fault. This red line represents the government representation of the Big Creek Fault. And that fault is important because it's a very long and important structure throughout the Dawson Range, which is a controlling structure for mineralization at a whole bunch of deposits, including Coffee to the northwest of us and Carmack's Copper to the southeast of us. We're along a very prolific metallogenic belt that includes Casino and a whole bunch of other porphyry deposits, all of which have some sort of fault-related control, mostly related to this Big Creek Fault. We have the longest road accessible portion of the Big Creek Fault, and this is the road that goes through our camp and roughly follows the Big Creek Fault. On our property, we have a whole bunch of showings. Almost every rock that you break open has lots of pyrite, lots of it has malachite and azurite, there's copper bleeding out. And of those showings, we have 3 which have current resources. We have the Tinta polymetallic vein deposit, and then we have Nucleus and Revenue, which are part of a porphyry to epithermal transition. Revenue is mostly porphyry and Nucleus is mostly epithermal, and together those 2 resources contain about 3 million ounces of indicated and inferred gold.
So knowing that a company such as Goldcorp would be looking for gold deposits with significant upside potential, what is it that you showed them in regards to this point?
Most of the work that we conducted in 2016 and 2017 was focused on Revenue and Nucleus. Revenue and Nucleus are about 3.5 kilometers apart from one another, and they're modeled as separate deposits. Nucleus is mostly an epithermal system with about 2 million ounces of gold, and Revenue is dominated by a diatreme that basically has this shape. Most of the exploration at Revenue and Nucleus is focused within these yellow areas. But those areas are contained within a 6-kilometer zone that has a very strong multi-element in soil anomaly, so molybdenum, gold, silver, tungsten, copper in soil, and that's accompanied by a chargeability high. So in 2016, when we went into the property, we decided that instead of focusing on definition drilling within these deposit areas, maybe we would test the idea that those 2 deposits are related and that there may be other parts of that hydrothermal system that's responsible for them in the outlying areas that are within the soil anomaly. So we tested that to the east of the diatreme at Revenue, to the south of the diatreme at Revenue, and in between Nucleus and Revenue in these areas. And we had success in each of those locations. Off to the east, we had 10 intersections of over 1 gram gold in one drill hole, and that's in the headwaters of a placer creek that has never been drilled before, with quite a bit of placer gold found recovered from the creek. In this area, we drilled 4 holes and defined a 450 meter long zone of high-grade, gold-rich porphyry-style mineralization. And the really important thing that we discovered in here is that this high-grade porphyry-style mineralization predates the emplacement of this diatreme. But the diatreme is the main thing that hosts the current resource. So now we see mineralization that was there before the previous areas that have seen exploration. We saw the same thing down here, more porphyry-style mineralization that predates the emplacement of this diatreme. And when we drilled down here, we hit the highest grade gold that had ever been discovered in the revenue area, 81 grams gold over a meter. What's really compelling about the gold we discovered right here is that it's in the headwaters of Revenue Creek, which is justly named because it's renowned as having had one of the richest placer gold channels in all of the Dawson Range. Then we stepped out over to the area between Revenue and Nucleus, and there we drilled a 600-meter deep hole, and from top to bottom, that hole was riddled with stockwork veining and all kinds of alteration, just the kind of stuff that you see in the guts of a porphyry. So now, what we've done is we've shown that there's not just two deposit areas, but there's an enormous hydrothermal magmatic system that we've now defined over a 4-meter strike length from Nucleus to this area. And we've seen porphyry with mineralization in that entire area, everywhere that we've drilled. So what we think we have is a large porphyry system cored by a diatreme, which is sort of the root of a highly explosive volcano. And then off on the western side, we have an epithermal component to the system in Nucleus with about 2 million ounces gold. And to the south, a brand new epithermal style showing that is at a very early stage of exploration.
Well, by showing that you may have both a porphyry and epithermal-based project, that would certainly be very appealing to a major. Now, as to the individual deposits themselves, what is the upside potential to expand resources in the near future?
Looking at the drill program, we drilled mainly in the southern area of the Nucleus resource and to the south of the resource. And one of the really interesting things that we discovered is that in conjunction with historical drilling in that area, we were able to define 4 previously unknown gold-bearing structures that have continuity up to 350 meters along strike and that are still open along strike in both directions to the east and west and to depth. Let's take a look at those structures in 3D. Everything that you see here in yellow, orange, or red is an intersection that we made with the 2017 drilling. We don't have the other drilling on here, but together these intersections along with previous drilling, we were able to define 4 new gold-bearing structures. Here, 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 and here. And there's historical drilling along this section, through the middle here, and over here that we were able to show that these structures have up to 350 meters of continuity. Now let's look at those intersections with respect to the block model for the resource. This is the block model for the resource, and the intersections are still shown in those colors. If we rotate upwards and take a west-facing view, you can see some of these are entirely outside of where there are any resource blocks. But even the ones that are within the main resource area are within windows in that resource. So here and here and here. And if we rotate it the other direction, you would see the same thing on that side. So most of these are actually outside of the resource, even though they're within the overall encompassed by the area that's covered by the resource. So you can expect that these structures that we're demonstrating continuity on are going to be able to add to the overall amount of gold that we have in the resource in the future.
I like your approach to the Freegold project. You're first shown the majors as to what is the overall control of the mineralization on your property, that being the Big Creek Fault, which also controls the mineralization for other large deposits in the area. Then you've clearly shown that mineralized system on your property is potentially a very large porphyry, and as well as an epithermal system. Majors like that as well. Next, you define a significant gold resource and show that you understand the controlling microstructures and how they can possibly lead to expanding upon the resource in the shorter term. So now that Goldcorp has invested $6.3 million into your project, what do you plan to show them in 2018?
So moving forward in 2018, we're going to carry on with the successes that we've had in exploring these areas that we've had successes in already, but we're also going to look at areas that have seen historical success from exploration back in the 60s and 70s. And that's these areas shown in red. These are areas where historical exploration had quite a bit of success. There's a lot of gold near surface in each of these areas, but these are areas that have never been explored for a deep hydrothermal system or a porphyry. It's just people scratching at the surface trying to find high-grade gold. And to some extent, they had good success. But we think that since we've defined a large zone of a big hydrothermal system, that these are really obvious places to continue to carry on that exploration since there is gold at surface.
Well, thank you very much for that excellent discussion and showing our viewers how Triumph Gold has taken a very systematic approach in developing the Freegold project and being rewarded with a very generous investment by Goldcorp. When a major first approaches a junior resource company, the very first question they ask is, do you understand why the mineralization is on your property? What controls it? And what is the potential for it to be much larger? For the juniors that answer that with, we don't understand that yet, the major replies, well, go back and do more work and come back when you do. However, for the junior that is able to answer those questions positively and shows the major that they have a good understanding of the mineralization on the property, well, to those juniors, the major is willing to write the big check because the junior has taken out much of the risk or unknowns of the property. And this is exactly what a major wants a junior to do. Taking a systematic approach in developing a project similar to the one taken by a Triumph Gold may not always be appreciated by the market, as it may be a slow and lengthy process. But in the end, this is exactly what the majors are looking for, as it increases the confidence level of the data and the understanding of the project. And if the results are very positive, the ultimate reward for the shareholders come in the way of a joint venture or a complete buyout by the major. iResource Network will continue to follow the further development of the Freegold project, as well as having discussions with geologists from other junior companies. Until then, I'm George Sokochoff, and this is iResource Network.